Welcome to Renatio's Show. This is the podcast where I interview entrepreneurs and mavericks who get shit done.
Hey, what's up, my friend? So today we have Angjolie, who runs a funeral business called the Life Celebrant. Unlike most funerals that you've attended, which are usually a sad event, her company helps to do it in a positive and uplifting manner. Imagine, right, having a karaoke machine, right, at a funeral. Yes, right, that's something that can be done, right? And we'll talk more about it later. So if you want to connect with Angjolie, I'll put her link to her social media profile in the description below. But for now, here's what we've covered in today's conversation. First, we talk about how Angjolie got started in the funeral business, because this is a business that most women tend to shun away from. So how did she get started? Number two, how a funeral business works, right? What's the process like from start to finish? Then we talk about the different types of funeral cultures around the world and important things that you must have in order, right? So your family will have an easier time right after you pass on. So we talk about things like LPA, financial will, etc. And finally, her take on death and transition to the next life. So all this and more in today's conversation. Sounds good? Then go listen to it right now. Yay, awesome. Welcome, Angjolie, to the show.
Thank you for having me, Reina.
How do you feel? One word opening. How do you feel?
One word opening. Excited, actually. Very excited.
Wow, you stole my word. I feel happy. I see. I just feel happy. You have bring the positive vibe right along with you. The moment you enter my house, the door.
Oh,
wow,
really?
This lady. Positive vibe.
Even though I'm wearing black, yeah.
Is that your trademark? I noticed that you wear a lot of black, I think on most occasions.
Yes.
On purpose.
I think number one, it makes me slimmer, which is what every ladies will say. Number two, because of my work, right? Then
Yes.
I try to, so I will plan my day like, okay, today maybe I will have certain appointments, and then maybe it will involve meeting people who are going through bereavement.
Correct.
So just in case, because I used to have a black dress in my car. So then sometimes I'm in a function and then I get a call. So I have to change in the car and go to the appointment. But now I have the luxury, a little bit more luxury, because I have two funeral directors. So they will be the ones who meet the family. But back then I didn't have anybody
So
when
like,
I first started.
black is way easier. Don't need to think, whether need to change or not. Just, okay.
Yeah, now after being a mother, you don't have that. You just like, hey, just wear. I already lost that figure. I need to learn for your wife.
Well, the listener come and find my wife pictures online. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So before we get started, I believe I met you the first time was during the EO Dragon Boat event.
Yes.
That was where I met you. Then I met you. Wow, this lady, she's like, it felt like you were the leader of the boat, right? Taking charge. And then from the event, I think, wow, I really admire this lady, because after that, I realized that you actually joined EO. For those of you wondering, we're actually in this organization called the Entrepreneurs Organization. I realized you actually joined at the same time. But at the moment when I saw you, I felt that you had the initiative, you had that let's get things done factor, where I really admire for that, because not easy. A bunch of entrepreneurs, then one lady taking charge. Hey guy, let's push harder and harder. Like, I thought you're like some lao jiao, maybe 10 years, 15 years there, but no. So I guess that's a trait about you that I admire. Like, wow, this one power, this lady's power.
One thing about me, I'm very competitive lah. So I think for that Dragon Boat, I was like, wow, we need to win. So I remember.
You got us big time.
Yeah, I remember that. And then, in fact, I was, I think there was supposed to be another girl, but she didn't feel well. So our boat was 7, right? I think your boat also, you had one guy extra or something.
Steven, yeah.
Yes, Steven was not from your forum. So I remember that particular one. I was like, okay, guys, we need to do this to win. But I also realized it's also my forum mates. They are also competitive, right? So they put me in front, and then together with Kit, another foreign mate, and then they're like, okay, don't fuck it up, don't screw up. So yeah, because they all follow my tempo. So Kid will follow my tempo, and then the back guy will follow my tempo too. So I said, oh wow, so I'm the one who set the tempo. So okay, so all I have in the mind was, okay, don't screw up, because I think the lady who was in charge of our boat was also very good to give us guidance. Like, it's the body movement.
Oh, it's the lady.
Yeah. So I heard another forum actually went for secret training, right? So we didn't have training, and then we still.
You guys were first, right? You guys were
twice, I think we were.
Amazing.
Yeah. But I guess it's really the body movement. Like, we really do the full movement, so that sort of rock the boat. But I don't know whether one of our foreign mates actually fell off. You probably didn't get it. So someone took a video.
Okay.
from the side of the three of the boats. And then at one point, one of our foreign mate maybe he was paddling too hard, right? So he actually fell off. So we all say, stop. Because we don't know what's happening, but the whole boat started shaking. But we were like, what happened? So he fell off his chair.
Oh.
But it was very fun. Oh yeah, that was the first time we met.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
you just joined.
I just joined only. So yeah, so that's why I thought that back then when you were like, pushing them to go on, this one should be like 5 years, 10 years in EO. That's why taking charge.
Oh, no,
No, actually just around my time. I mean, just 1 year earlier. This lady, her trait really amazing. And this brings me to my question. Was this trait something you had along this competitive spirit, this, taking charge attitude?
I actually like team sports a lot. I find that team sport is where I'm a believer that, if you want to go fast, you go by yourself. But if you want to go far, you go as a team. So I'm always in team sports, like whether is it in NUS, basketball or handball, frisbee, ultimate frisbee tournament. I enjoy that sort of togetherness, right? And then you fight together and it's like one for all for one. So
Camaraderie,
camaraderie. And then I love that, and I think that's something that I am very competitive, like as a team, if we can all grow together or excel together or win together. Yeah. So yeah, that trait was sort of in me when I was in secondary school. So I'm always a monitress for some reason. Yeah.
Okay.
Primary school was a monitress. In secondary school, I was also made monitress. And we, together with my monitor, we both brought our classmates to a competition. And I remember this was secondary 4, we are doing O-level. So we would even plan to stay back and then create our own cheer. It was a National Day tournament. So don't know why lah. We were like, hey, let's do it, So we actually organized the whole thing, got our classmates to stay back after school, come up with the lyrics ourselves. So very authentic. Lyrics is all set by us. And then we came up with the formation and all that. I don't know how we did that. I remember my form teacher came in and she made a comment. She said, you guys are doing your O-level. Don't spend so much time on this. So we're like, oh, okay. So we probably stay back quite often just for this tournament. And the thing is, we won, but we won wearing our uniform and we won by 1 point because the other group had very good National Day uniform. Like they dress in red and white. We wear our uniform. Oh. And then we had the formation. We had like claps to do the cheer. But we won by 1 point because of authenticity. Our cheer was like one of a kind, right? The other one was like they copy somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I think people hated us because we were the best student. Because in our class, we were the best set 4 express, right?
Best class.
Okay. Then we do very well. And then we won the competition. So they were like, wow, this class, we really hated them. And then because I was the monitress, I wanted to save time. So every time when there's a teacher that's sick, let's say example, we have an empty class, empty hour. So probably the teacher was sick, not able to come to school. So we have 1 hour free, right? So most people would appreciate that 1 hour to free time to do your own things. We don't, My class is like, okay, I'm going to go and look for teachers to fill in so that we don't have to stay for remedial.
Wow.
So I will go to the staff teacher's room like, Mrs. Goh, are you free now? We have a free hour. Can you come in to take our class? Then another teacher. So they were all shocked. Like this is the only class who will do that. So people thought we were damn hardworking. But the truth of the matter is we don't want to stay back. It's quite weird. Our class enjoys to go home early. But every day we are remedial because secondary 4, right? So you have O-level.
O-levels, yes.
Yeah. So we don't want to stay back. So if we could, we will ask the teachers who are having remedial to fill in the hour. So we don't have to stay back.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So then, but the teachers see it as, wow, this class damn hardworking. Yeah. Even my form teacher is like, wow, you guys make me proud. I said, yeah, because actually we don't want to waste time.
So this trait all along since secondary school. Wow. And you mentioned you like to play sports. Any particular sports that you really enjoyed because of the camaraderie?
Basketball. I think basketball, when I was in secondary school, basketball was something I enjoy a lot. And then I think when I went to uni, we also did swimming when I was a kid. My mom made us swim since very young and make us compete. But not because we wanted to, but we just never knew much. My mom always put us to competition just to for exposure. She doesn't expect us to win. And if we win, it's a bonus, right? So from young, we do a lot of activities. But I think the one that stuck with me was basketball.
Ah.
Yeah, basketball was something I enjoy. But yeah, after uni, you stop playing already.
But I noticed now you're still quite tense. So I guess you're still into sports or in the
water
into the
sports
sun.
now do more individual sports. Very different. But I do like when you go to a gym, right? It's like you work with a group of people. Wow, that's something I
Work with a
enjoy.
group of people. You mean like those like F45, those kind where
then
for 45 minutes,
then you
bunch of
see other people together, then you rah-rah each other. Yeah, that kind.
I have friends who do that, but I would say that I noticed a number of them get injured because I think guys are ego.
It's
They want to
true,
outlive
true,
them.
true.
Then maybe girls, they don't have the ego. And guys will end up getting injured. So I think, hey,
It's
maybe
true.
I stick to my solo gym, my
Yeah.
own pace, less
Because
injury.
I think sometimes you got to be very careful because even my partner had injured his back because of hits. Because, they do you don't learn the proper technique.
Exactly, right? It's
Yeah.
meant to like hit the higher weights, higher reps and stuff.
Yeah,
where-
but you look so,
wow, I also went through a lot.
muscle.
Went through a lot, yeah.
Yes, I just saw the photo. the
That
photo.
photo, not many people had a chance to see.
Wow, I'm
Yeah,
very
that one.
privileged, man. That one is like, for those people who don't know, I just saw a picture of Rainer that is 3 times, I think, your size now.
That was probably around 108 to 110 kg when I was 15 or 16 years old.
Oh
yeah.
boy, I was also fat. I was a fat kid when I was 15.
Ah.
I gained about 15 kg in 1 month or 2 months because actually it was a story that I think I shared in my book. My aunt was diagnosed with cancer. So I didn't know who to talk to, right? Because I feel that nobody will understand. And it's a common sort of message you tell yourself like, oh, it won't happen to our family. It won't happen to our family. So when it really happened to our family, especially the cancer illness, you kind of get a shock, right? You don't know how to react. So I didn't know who to talk to. Back then, there's no internet. So I just started eating as a stress or, grief management. I started eating and then within a few months, I put on so much. I couldn't fit into my uniform. I was used to be maybe 49 kg. I went up to 60 plus. So I was big. So there was because my old name is Mei Mei, right? So before, there was some I won't say bullies lah. When you're young, you don't know better, right? So then kids were like, oh, Mei Mei 变丑丑.
Ayo.
Yeah, Mei Mei, like pretty becomes ugly, Yeah, so that really affected my self-esteem. And then nobody knew what happened. I didn't tell anyone, not even my best friend, what happened in my family. So I start to come to school, do what I need to do as a monitress, and then I will leave. And everyone who wants to connect with me, I will always be very careful. Like, oh yeah, they want to study with me because I was good in studies, right? Then I will come up with some stupid excuses so that they don't grab me after school. I will go study by myself. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's this kind of behavior when I was a kid. Even though I like team, but there are times when I need to be myself, I will go into my little space.
Is it the same? Is it true still for today?
Still, yeah. So there are times where I think I'm very aware about how I feel. So there are times, like moments of flashback, when I was secondary school, for some reason, kids, or not like classmates, they like to talk to me. And then they will observe that I was walking home. Because my home, it was like 4 bus stops away. So I will walk home. And because I walk home, people know I walk home. Then they will take opportunity to walk home with me. And then I will have to come up with some stupid reason to say, hey, I need to buy something. Okay, I'll go with you. I was like, oh, I want to be alone. And I think as a young kid, I really love the time I spend by myself. So even in EO, I have 2 personalities. Some people say, hey, Angjolie, you're like extrovert. I said, no, actually, I'm an introvert. I think I'm only extrovert when I need to, and I'm sure a lot of listeners are also the same. I don't know about you. You look like extrovert to me. Yeah, but I think we have moments like that, right? Where, yes, when we need to be a team member, we are a team player. But when we want to be with ourselves, yeah, we actually hibernate, and then you maybe don't hear from us for a while.
Yeah, I can relate. I'm actually more of an introvert actually, but sometimes during social events, I can't possibly just stand there and just shut my mouth. So I just extrovert when need be, but if I can, I just be introvert and just, reflect on things or
Yeah,
that I'm
yeah.
going through.
It's like your social battery. I have a social battery. So my battery will run. And then after that, I will go. And then I'm the kind who I will leave the evening. I used to be the kind that I will leave the evening without telling anyone. Because I know back then I was not able to say no, right? I don't know how to say no. So when people are like, hey, they don't go lah, it's too early. Then you feel like obligated. So at one point, I remember that I would sneak away because I don't want people to force me. And I hated that feeling of not being true to myself. Like, I really want to go. And then now as you grow older, you really don't care. Lah. Like, I just want to go. I'm going. You don't care if people judge like, hey, come on. You said, yeah, but I want to go.
Yeah, gotta go.
Yeah, bye. Yeah,
I think nowadays people are more mature. Okay, go.
I think we reach a certain age, right? Back then you are so like peer pressure, like you feel bad if you leave. Then I will sneak away. I will say, hey, I go toilet. And then I never come. Yes.
Gone. Anjolie's gone.
So sorry for those who kena the I go toilet and I never come back. Then I'll drop them a text. Hey, bye, I'm very tired. I'm going.
Okay. So that's just really interesting. So maybe now we can move on. I think some of the listeners are thinking, why is this lady talking about funeral wearing black? So they're probably wondering what you do for a living, right? So maybe you can share, right? What you do for a living and how you got started. I think that'd be nice to talk about.
So I founded a company, the Life Celebrant, TLC, which is also the abbreviation for Tender Loving Care. So I started this company in 2010 where we serve people who can no longer take care of themselves. So I'm in the funeral business. And how I get started, actually it has to go back to my father. In 2004, my dad sort of unexpectedly passed away before I think it's premature. To me, it was very premature. He was only 64. And I just graduated from NUS. I was a student in arts and social science. I majored in economics and psychology. I couldn't get into business because my GP for A-level was F9, fantastic 9. Nobody has beat my record ever. So I couldn't get into business. So I ended up in arts and social science, major in economics and psychology. Went into my first job in a logistics company for 1.5 years. So I was quite clueless what I wanted to do in life. Never really had a plan. And never thought of starting or working in my dad's company because he runs a funeral business. And back then, in 2004, the early 20th, you never hear of female joining the funeral industry.
Never hear.
Yeah, it's not something that people are proud of. Even when my mom got married to my dad, I remember I only knew this after when I was a bit older, like 30 plus, and I was having a conversation with my grandmother. And then my grandmother was the one who told me that actually when my mom wanted to marry my dad, my akong, my mom's dad, didn't approve because, of my dad's job. So that was when I realized, wow, it's a very dirty word, right? Like if you talk about funeral, who wants to marry a funeral director? So when my dad was diagnosed with colon cancer, so he actually passed away not because of cancer, but because of a failed surgery. So we didn't expect. We thought it was a very simple surgery, but the surgery led to renal failure, and then after that, he passed within 3 days. So after that, and I have to step into the business because we have 4 of us. So I'm the second in the family. My eldest is an accountant working for the Big Four. So I told her don't quit her job. My 2 younger siblings were still in school. So one in poly, and my youngest brother was only 9 years old. Yeah. So I said, okay, let me help my mom first. And I quit my job. Thank God I have a very understanding boss. Didn't need me to serve 1 month notice. Yeah. So he's a SME owner. He also have his 2 sons working for him. So he said, just go. Don't need to serve notice. So I left immediately, went back to the office, collect my things, and then started my work at my mom's, with my mom in my dad's business. Well, it's very challenging because back then, females are not looked up to, right? For this business industry. And there were a lot of things I had to learn. So I told my mom, I'm not going to be sitting behind the table, waiting for a customer to come in. So whenever we get a sort of a case that we need to handle, I will go out with my operation team, the men, to the mortuary. I will drive to the mortuary. I will help to lift the departed. I will want I want the back of the house. I wanted to see what goes on behind, not just the front of the house, but back of the house. So that was my first exposure to the funeral industry. But the irony is my mom, even though, most of the family businesses will be so happy when they have a kid who's joining the business. My mom, on the contrary, didn't want me to be in the business. So she said, no, you have a degree, go get your experience somewhere else. So she wanted me to join the bank. She said, go and join the bank, get more exposure. And then my mom said this thing, when I can't work anymore, then you come in. And I said, don't do that to me. Don't do that to us, because that's what happened to dad, right? So I think as parents, we never really think about all this, right? So in whatever my mom has done, make me think a lot about how we should prepare our next generation of this uneventful situation. So I remember my mom kept saying that, and in order to appease her, I actually joined a financial advisory. So back then, financial advisory is very new, in the infancy stage. So you represent many different insurance company. So I was there for 4 years, did very well. In fact, my mom was so angry at me when I said I want to come back to the funeral because I was hitting MDRT and all that, which is $1 million round table. So it means that you hit certain accolades or achievement. So then 2009, I made the decision to come back again. And I wanted to link the business from womb to tomb. So from when you're born, from cradle to grave. Because I feel that, from insurance all the way to a funeral, it should be a conversation together with legacy planning, will writing, trust and all that. So I came back and then wanted to help my mom. My mom was so angry that I give up my, 5-figure job. She was like, no, you go back there. I said, no, I want to start my own. So in 2010, I decided, it's very hard to work with my mom. So I started my own company. In 2010, I started my own TLC, the Life Celebrant. Even though she was, when I first told her, Ma, I'm going to start my own company. And my mom's reaction was, 你在问我还是跟我讲? Are you telling me or asking me? I said, I'm just telling you. I said, then just do lah. Don't touch your dad's brand. That was exactly what she said. Don't touch your dad's brand. So I said, okay. So I started my own.
So your mom, when your dad passed on, you were helping them for a while, but your mom said, no, please go and do something else. Don't want you to stay there. You left. Then she continued doing the business.
Yeah, she continued with the business. So I think there was a moment where I felt very worried. And then I felt very worried because my mom, back then there's no Google Map. It was only street directory.
Yeah,
right?
you're correct.
So every time you go to a family's home, let's say example, the family said, so-and-so has passed, come to the house. So you have to look at the street directory, figure out your way there. And back then, there's no Garmin, there's no GPS. So my biggest concern was her driving. And because I used to drive her around. So when she asked me to leave, right, and go and start my business, my biggest worry was whether she know how to find her way. Then a video came up and that really struck me. And then I realized, the saying that you don't give someone a fish, you teach them how to fish, right? Then you can help them for life. So one day there was a video that I watched and that inspired me. And that video was a lady, she is blind and her husband has always been the one helping her. Then one day the husband said, tomorrow I'm not going to help you. You need to figure out your way to the office yourself. And she was very upset, how dare you leave me alone? And she was very despaired. Like, why did her husband not love her and all that? But not knowing that every time she goes to the office, actually he's watching her and he's following her. And then one day someone said to her, I said, your husband is so sweet. I said, my husband? He said, yeah, he's always following you to the office. So, but she didn't know.
Oh.
Yeah. So then I realized, sometimes to love someone is to help them, but not taking care of them and, helping them to go to one place, but helping to empower them. So that's love.
Yeah, I can relate to that because I myself have children and I do struggle, between spoon feeding them and letting them fail. Because if I spoon feed them, they're not going to learn, right? So I'm depriving them of lessons in life. So sometimes I should just let them fail and they can learn faster rather than, helping them every step of the way.
Yeah, I think
so
you have 3, man. I have 1. And she's like, every day I'm learning from my daughter, like, because I remember when she was learning to walk. So I gave her a little mini backpack. So people thought, wow, this mother, You give her a backpack. I said, no, trust me, the backpack has she carry her own things since young. She has a diaper, she has a milk bottle, and she has wet wipes, right? So it's very light. Her bag is very light. But the reason why I give her a small backpack is so that in case she falls, she has a backpack to support.
Okay.
So I don't want to hold her hand. So she's like, she walked like a boss. You watch her and she's like, wow, this woman, just walk in the crowd and she will be in front of me. She's quite a bossy. I think she has a character of my partner. I'm very sure. Very bossy walk. So I said, yeah, sometimes when they fall, and I think a lot has to do with reactions, right? As parents, do we react? Yeah. The more you react like, oh my God, are you okay? Or you just like, oh, boo-boo, it's okay. Now you can stand up, right? And they don't see the fear in you. They don't see that reaction from you. Then they realize, oh, it's actually nothing. So my daughter learns to like, oh, mommy, pain. So you just give her a kiss and then she'll be fine. And that's something that I learned as parents. Like you need to empower them to let them know, yeah, things will happen. If you want to run off, but this will happen. And then you need to face the consequences.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Where I think the stronger you react, the more they will cry or react. But if you're just very nonchalant and just like, nothing. Okay, let's move on. Oh, what is that? Works, okay.
I think you have 3 kids to practice, right? And of course, the eldest kid has a lot of photos. Then the last kid is like, forget it. I'm sure I will do the same.
So funeral director. So maybe you can share a little bit of what's the life of a funeral director like, or maybe a daily routine of a funeral director.
I think now my direction has sort of shifted because now I have a team, right? So I do seminars, I conduct a workshop, or I do podcasts like this. But maybe let's go back to when I first started. When I first started, you are 24/7 on the phone. Like when I say 24/7, your phone is constantly like glued to you because you never know when a call will come in, right? So whether you're in the showers, I bring my phone to the showers, or in the middle of the night, you get a call, you have to get up, you have to train your voice. You cannot be sleepy, right? You have to train your voice as if you are awake, So you have to sort of train your voice to be like, hello, this is Angjolie from the Life Celebrant. How can I help you? Right? Rather than the hello, you can't do that, right? So 24/7, that's the experience I had. But when I first joined, when my dad passed away, there were a lot of practices that I didn't quite agree. And I struggled with it. When I say I couldn't agree was, example, every time when there's a call, we have to rush down to the funeral area, the hospital, or the person's house. Usually, I prefer not to do any arrangement at the hospital. The reason is because it's not a very conducive place for the family. They've probably been in the hospital for many hours, all right? Because I went through that with my dad. So they're all tired, they're exhausted. And secondly, if you don't have a private room, you are in a public area. Imagine everyone crowding around and you are the funeral director sitting in one of the common area couch or like presenting to the family. And then people who walk past, they will know, right? You have a bereavement. So I feel there's no privacy for the family unless that hospital has a private room. Then yes, I will go to the hospital and meet. But that also start to shift because I realize a lot of families actually prefer when they go home and then they can sit down, have a meal, have a hot drink, and then start the conversation of the arrangement. So that was something we start to see shift now. Back then, it was like, oh, my mom would tell me, oh, go to the hospital because you never know who will be there to snatch the business. Yeah.
You mean they will actually call multiple vendors then?
No, there were touters. There are still touters, right? Or even like maybe some people or some nurses will make some recommendations and then they probably go with a nurse recommendation because maybe they have communicated or have a relationship with the nurse. Right? After so many days, they take care of their loved one. So my mom was always worried, and I think this was the behavior from the funeral directors. Even my dad gets a call, and back then there's no handphone, so they will call the house number. Oh. So my memory of my dad, because we used to stay in the same room, we sleep in the tilam, right, the mattress, that the minute the house call, the house phone rings, my dad will pick up and then you will hear him say, okay. He hangs up and next thing is he jump into the showers and he's out of the house. Yeah, so my dad's life was like that. So I witnessed that. And interestingly, my dad didn't have an alarm clock. but his body know how to react. Like 5 a.m., he has a job, he wakes up, he goes, so I realized my dad never, he was very dedicated to his work. And I think from there, I really learned a lot. And I learned a lot about my father after he passed, where people come and tell me stories about my dad. In fact, last month, I was in a temple in Quanzhou. I was I was going on a tour together with a temple. So it was in Xiamen, then we would go to Fuzhou and Quanzhou and Fuzhou, right? So I didn't think much. I was like, oh, okay, let's go Xiamen. So I went, we visited many temples. And then there was one temple in particular, I saw this reverend, this abbot, who used to be the abbot for Bright Hill Temple in Xingming Drive. So my dad and this abbot was very, very close. So it was a memorial hall for this abbot. This monk, this master monk. And it was a statue. I was like, hey, Hong Chuan Fa Si, this is where he is. So people were like telling me, hey, this is your dad must have come to this temple before. I was like, yeah, I'm very sure. And this is in Quanzhou in China, right? I was like, oh, so it was his statue, the Shifu's statue. And then behind the statue was his memorial hall, where there were photos of him. So I was like, oh, maybe let's see if I can see my dad's photo. So I went in, make one round, and then I saw 2 photos with my dad in it, with this master. And I was like, wow, things coming back in a full circle, right? So then I went to, so we had a sort of a 交流会 interaction. So with the monk who's in charge of the temple now. So then when I went up to him, I introduced myself. I'm actually the daughter of Ang Yu Sing. So at first he was like, Ang Yu Sing, Hong Yu Chen, like it rings a bell. Then it was my master who said to him like, oh, the Kun Cui Lo, the casket company. He said, oh, I know your father. Your father used to be Hong Lao, which is Hong Chuan Fa Si. The master used to call your father Pai Kia. Pai Kia is like bad boy lah. So it was very interesting. And I recorded his whole conversation about his memories of my dad. Yeah, because back then when he met my dad, he was still a young kid, but he remembered my dad. So I was like, wow, it was such a amazing trip, because initially the trip was supposed to be Thailand. Then it got changed to China. So within maybe 1 month of preparation, we went to China. And to be able to be in this trip, wow, it was just very rewarding to see my dad, to hear stories about my dad. I mean, I'm still learning about my dad. And this year, or probably in another few more weeks, is my 20 years of my dad's passing. So yeah, I'm still learning about him every day. There are people who tell me, the funniest I heard was this lady I met in a function. And he's like, oh, you're Ang Yu Sing's daughter. I need to tell you something. I was like, oh, what is that? He said, my cousin nearly married your dad. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. My cousin nearly married your dad. But because my cousin was saying that, oh, your father is doing the funeral business, so she chose to deny this arranged marriage. Then I was looking at her, I was like, wow, thank God, man. Otherwise, I would be born. Yeah.
Close one.
Funny stories. Eh?
So you mentioned that back then, I have to rush down and to the hospital and facilitate. But I guess today now is different.
I think now people, family members actually appreciate when you tell them, look, it's very late. Maybe let's say example 2 a.m. Why don't your family go home and rest? Tomorrow morning I'll come by to your house at maybe 10 a.m. so that you have time to rest. Then we start the arrangement. And a lot of times you realize family don't rush. I mean, there's no emergency anymore, right? If you agree. Yeah. In a way, there's no more emergency. So why not have proper rest? Because the next few days, you guys are not going to have a lot of rest. So why don't you rest properly? Because there's still things to get ready. We can't do the setup in the middle of the night. We can't set up the tentage. So why don't you rest? And then tomorrow morning when we come over, we get the plans out, right? So by guiding the family, I think over the phone, step by step, is very important. So rather than letting them feel like, oh my God, I need to do this. Oh my God, I need to do this. And they need to rush. You actually calm them down and you tell them, there's really no rush. What I will do is I'll come over tomorrow. But first, let's take care of your father. We're going to bring your father back to our care center. Tonight, he'll be resting at our care center. So don't worry. It's not, sometimes they will ask, is it a freezer? We say, no, it's not a freezer. Don't worry, he'll be resting in the aircon room. But let us treat him first. Let us take care of your dad. Then tomorrow at 10 a.m., we'll come to your house, we make the arrangement. Then because we have a service called Showers of Love. Showers of Love where we allow family members to do the final dressing and the makeup for the departed. So that actually gives a lot of closure for the family. We started this service in 2017. So, and we have seen a lot of family members who give us feedback, review, and every time they talk about Showers of Love, where they are able to help participate in the dressing and the makeup for their loved ones. And then, so by slowing down the process, I think it's very essential because then you catch the family when they are more relaxed, when they are more awake, right? Imagine in the middle of the night, you go to their house, you have to force them to make the arrangement and they may not make the best decision because they're sleepy, they're tired, they're hungry. So I think now people are able to accept. In the past, people probably have to come down to the showroom to look at the physical casket. But nowadays, people just choose from the iPad, right? It's no longer choosing the casket like this, like, oh, this one, right? But it's just one of the design, like, oh, I like this model instead of this physical one. Yeah. So things have changed over the years. Yeah. And I think the mindset of preparing for funeral, if they know that their loved one is about to go, sometimes they already get in touch with us. Like, oh, my mom is not doing well. I want to know what should I do. Yeah. But back then, you never hear of that. It's people like, what we call at a time of need. And they call us.
Only when shit hits the fan, you know just what to call.
Yeah. And that's why there's still touters, right? That people are just waiting. Like, hey.
Wow, this is like very insensitive, like touting, like, wow, from there.
But I guess it's also because people don't prepare. So in order to avoid the touters, then I think the best thing is
prepare ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of, since you're on the topic of, when someone reach out to you, so maybe a high level overview, because I've never touch wood, book a service before. So how is the process like when someone say, hey, they call you up, hey, I need a service. So what are like the steps that will follow through?
I think the first thing we always make sure that they do is that we share with them. The first thing we need to care for is the departed. So we will transfer the departed to our care center where we start to treat them. Because in Singapore, you know that the weather is very hot. So we need to go through this process of preservation, right? So embalming. And then through this preservation, the body can be viewable for the next 3 days to 5 days. Typically in Singapore, the funeral wake will last about 3 to 5 days. Unless you are a Muslim or a Hindu, then they pretty much do everything in 1 day. So we will transfer the departed back to our place. Say, for instance, they call us in the morning. So we can usually meet the family in the afternoon to make the arrangement. So once the arrangement is done, funeral directors, our role is to make sure that we liaise with all the suppliers, right? The tentage, the parlor, example, the refreshments, the flowers. So it's sort of like a events planner, right? So, but the event transition time is very fast. So our turnaround time may be 6 hours max. So you are under that pressure, but the suppliers are sort of used to this kind of time frame. So you can't go to any events company and say, hey, I want to plan a funeral. Because I have encountered a case where a family said, oh, I know this tentage company. I want to get my own tentage company. And our response to her was, sure, but do they do funeral? Because the turnaround time is very fast, right? So she's like, yeah, I'm sure they can do it. I said, okay. So she insisted that she wanted to get her friend who runs the tentage company. But this tentage company, they are used to doing events where it's planned ahead of time, right? So meaning to say, let's say there's an event like Chinese New Year, they have a scheduled date and then they plan their deployment according to that. But this tentage company, they don't know how to do a funeral setup. So a few hours, maybe 3 hours later, she called us again. She said, oh, can you please get your tentage company? Because that tentage company couldn't do it. And then another case, we had it also the same. They insisted. So we have to call that casket company and ask, are you aware how to do a funeral setup? And the guy said, to be honest, no. So I said, you have two choices. One choice is either you want to reject or you pass this case to another tentage company who can do this, because it's not going to reflect good on you if this is your friend's funeral, know. So then he's like, yeah, let me see what I can do. So in the end, he engaged somebody who I know. So it was easy to work with because I understand you want to engage your friend, and I also don't want the client to feel pressure like, oh, I must use your contact. So I explained to the family because sometimes they are not used to doing funeral. So just make sure they do. So in the end, I think I didn't want to pressure the client. So I told the client, is it okay if I call your tentage company? So I called the tentage company and guided him so that he knows, because like I said, it's a team, right? The funeral director is in charge, right, to make sure everything runs. So if the tentage company is not done well, the family, they don't really remember that, oh, I called the tentage company. They will remember, oh, Angjolie, you didn't do well for the funeral. Or let's say, example, caterer. If caterer didn't serve food that is up to maybe the client standard, they don't remember who is the caterer. They remember, hey, your caterer are not good. So they will put every point to me. So it was so important at a point to be very aware how my suppliers are. And I was very picky with my suppliers. So even though my mom used a group of suppliers, they didn't really meet not all of them. Some of them didn't meet my standard. So I told my mom, is it okay if I use other suppliers? And my mom said, yeah, it's your own business. Go and use your other supplier. So I also feel bad, right? Because those suppliers, my dad's suppliers, were expecting me to support them.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
And then when I didn't, they were pretty upset. They told my mom, and my mom was very cool. She was supporting me. She's like, "这种年轻人, young people, let them do what they want." Yeah. So my mom supported me in that. So I didn't use the suppliers that she used. And sometimes it was like, I use my suppliers. I know the suppliers are good. I will share with my mom. If you want to ever change your supplier, you can consider them. Yeah.
Oh, good. Because I think prior to this, I thought funeral director, I thought everything is in-house. Okay, you have your own tentage, your own guys to set up tentage, your own guys. So actually, a lot of things like outsourced to other companies. So you're the one like an ID, you manage all these different moving parts for them.
Exactly. I mean, you could. Maybe for those bigger companies, they were like, example, Singapore Casket, they have their own parlors, right? It's within. So, but for us, we are small fit. So we will work with partners. And these partners are, they have demonstrated good service. They have demonstrated the level of standards I want. Usually I have this rule, family's feedback is very important. So if family feedback, hey, the food is not good. First time, I will tell my supplier, guys, your food is not good. Maybe you want to change cook or chef of a menu, right? And then if we get a few rounds, usually I will tell the owner, maybe 2 to 3 times, give them chance, hey, you guys are late. You guys are late to deliver the food. And then if it happens a few times, then I will be very honest with them. If you consistently late, I cannot support you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because your reputation is not going to take the hit,
exactly, right? So I say, hey, they don't remember which catering. They were like, hey, don't get their catering. Don't get Angjolie's caterer. Get our own caterer. Yeah, that will happen. So it's so important that we keep our suppliers, our partners, working partners, and let them know what is our level of expectation so that they know that, oh, this is the standard and please deliver.
So in Singapore context, it's very common for, let's say, the family to actually work with you rather than with all these individual companies, right?
So back then, I remember when my mom started, or when I started in my dad's business, my mom, I remember it was a folder, and in the folder, which my dad created, right? In that folder, there was a lot of name card slots. Okay, so I was like, why so many name card slots? So my dad would put, so then this is where I learned that my dad would put tentage company name card, drinks name card, the caterer name card, the florist name card, the tombstone name card. So the whole file is all context. Then my dad were, according to what my mom shared with me, how my dad would do the business was, he will close the deal for the funeral service, contact the supplier for tentage. Then in terms of the drinks, he will help to order the first round. Subsequently, family members have to call them whenever they need anything. So family members will have the contact of the tentage. So example, maybe they need extra fan, a standing fan. They have to call the contractor themselves. Then if they need more water, or let's say their packet drinks have run out, the family members have to call the drinks supplier. So I was asking my mom, but why do we want to burden family members with this decision? Why don't we do a one-stop? So my mom, I think back then, she didn't have education, or she was not taught by my dad. She just observed how my dad does it. And back then, those people would be like, okay, this is a supplier, right? You got to figure it yourself. So the thing I wanted to change was to be a one-stop. And then I think the whole mindset came from financial advisory, where I realized that, clients, every clients have different needs. So if they have to go to different insurance company and get the policy that they want, health insurance, PA, personal accident, they have to go to X company. Then for MediShield, another company. Why don't we help them, right? So when I went into financial advisory, that also helped to shape how I wanted the funeral service to be, where it becomes a one-stop. You contact us, we will be the point of contact to call everything. So we have a group chat with families. So the minute someone passes away, once we are entrusted, we have a group chat with my team and the family members so that the communication is seamless. Because back then we have maybe just one family members involved, but the family members may not pass the message down. So people will be like, wow, how come they do things like that? But actually it's not because of us. Maybe family forgot to inform that, they will deliver tomorrow, right? And then they just assume that we didn't do it. So I think this part about communication, thank God for WhatsApp group chat, right? We are able to put everything into the group chat so everyone get the information. There's no need for family members to disseminate. Then it's okay, just add whoever is involved, add them in so that you don't have to repeat.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, great. So we will put everything into that message. So whenever they need top up, like let's say, we run out of this. Okay, sure. Our team will then activate our suppliers. So family don't need to know the supplier's contact. So no more name cards there. So it saved a lot of time for family and also become hassle-free, right, for family. I mean, if you're grieving, you still have to think about all this thing. Isn't it very tiring? Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think funeral directors, one of the roles that I really think we have to perform is to help alleviate the stress and the hassle, be the organizer, be the coordinator. So help them. Also, one thing I learned is to be the protector for the family. Protector being unnecessary media exposure, right? So sometimes you have high profile funeral, then how do you protect the family? Yeah. So these are things that I learned along the way in my, I would say 14 years of my business.
So speaking of high profile death, how do you all protect the family?
I mean, number one is telling them the options of the location of the wake, right? So if you have it at the void deck, news is going to spread that, so-and-so's funeral is here. When we say high profile, it doesn't need to be celebrity. It just needs to be a very high profile, news-worthy sort of funeral. Example, someone who died in a car crash, right? Or someone who was stabbed and then they pass away. Then people will come, or some accident that happened. So because the media will be informed, and then sometimes you will have them coming to the void deck and they will hang out. And then even though you may say, please, I want to deny all interviews, but the cameraman will maybe take a picture, from far just to say, we are here. Because why? The journalists need to submit a report to the editor, right? Yeah. And it's nobody's fault. It's just that they need to submit a report, right? Because it's their job. So I've done a few high profile where we will offer them options where, why don't we do it at a place that's private, which usually is the parlor. Because once you're in the parlor, nobody really know who is here, who is in this room. And we just don't put out notices. We don't have obituary. Nobody will know. It's a private funeral. So when that is done, usually this high profile, maybe newspaper will start to ask, hey, where's the wake? Where's the wake? Where's the wake? There are times where people call, newspaper call, say, can I ask whether you're handling the funeral of this? Yeah. So I have to tell my team, whoever asks, you are not supposed to disclose anything, right? So, and you have no rights to disclose. So they are also trained in a way not to leak out all this kind of information.
I see. Okay. So also seems like a funeral director wear quite a number of hats, especially when it comes to...
I mean, you can wear, in the line, because I did my certificate in...
Yeah, I was going to ask you that as well. Yeah, there's
I think I'm
a license certification. I was going to ask you that.
Because when I realized that there was no school, right, in Singapore that offer funeral directing. But thankfully now there is, because ITE just started and I was so honored to be asked
I saw that video that Henry shared. Yes.
to be to ask to officiate the first course, right? So when I started I got my cert I started my course in 2010. I got my cert 2 years after. So in funeral directing course, actually there's a lot of things to learn. You learn about conflict management. In the past, I never thought about conflict management. But when I say conflict management, imagine you're in a room where family members just lost a loved one. And you have one person feeling guilty, one person in denial. The other person is angry, not at you, but angry at the doctor, angry at himself for not coming back earlier, and then one family member is maybe in shock. And at this point in time, everyone is in the different state of grief, right? Yeah. So how do you then manage them? How do you manage conflict? Maybe this brother don't like this sister don't like this brother. There's so many. And then how are you able to conduct arrangement and calm everybody down? And maybe some people are not able to calm down. They see your face. I've encountered so many times when I was a bit younger when I first started in industry, where they look at my mom, they look at me, they're like, "You are ladies. Are you sure you know what you're doing?" I mean, we went to a house. I remember this episode. We went to a house because one of the daughters called us. We went to the house and there was another funeral director inside. And then the daughter was like, "Oh, so sorry, I didn't know my uncle, my brother contacted him." So my mom was my mom always tell me, if they're not your customers, they're not your customers. Don't bother to fight for it. So we just walk away. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, how do we survive in this kind of, cutthroat kind of a competition in this industry? So there were so many things that I learned in my course, like certificate, in this certification of funeral directing, that how do you arrange, how do you fill up the details, what is the administration, what's the legislation? Because my course is from Canada. So they were sharing about the regulation in Calgary. And I realized, my God, there's so many regulations. And then there were also situations where, like example, high profile. When you meet a high profile, how do you react to this? How do you respond? How do you help the family? So that was when I realized, I learned that a funeral director's role is a lot more than just a word, right? Funeral directing. You don't just direct the funeral. You're also the protector for the family. You're the communicator. You diffuse the conflict. So that's your role. Because if you have one family members who wants this and the other family members refuse, then how do you mediate? So sometimes you play the role as a mediator also. So I think coincidentally, because I studied psychology, maybe it's also the universe way of wanting me to go into this industry. Because when I was doing, I couldn't get a business, but I ended up doing economics and psychology, and that helped me a lot with my with people management. Yeah, then you know how to calm down. You know how to, even sometimes I have to tell my team, like, okay, family members may be shouting at you, but not shouting at you. They're just shouting around you, but it's not at you. You just happen to be the point where they can shout at. Maybe they are feeling guilty for not coming back earlier. Maybe they are angry at the doctor for not saving the life or giving false hope that mom is going to be okay. And next minute, mom passed. So there's a lot of things family members are going through. So you need to take a deep breath when people shout at you, and then let them know, sure, when you're ready, we can talk about it. But not to shout back at them.
That would be a disaster, I can imagine.
Yeah, so you learn a lot along the way. You see different personalities. So,
And also, just to add on, right, I think I saw a picture of you online, because I think in Singapore, when the body is in the vehicle, you're on the road, kind of like marshalling the traffic to help facilitate the vehicle. Like, wow, this lady is like so...
Yeah. Back then, I was involved in all the funeral operation. My team still do that. When I'm there, I will still do that. Because I think you need to also be aware of the surrounding, right? You cannot be like, hey, we're having a funeral procession, then you are the biggest on the road. You still need to make sure that people can flow, buses can go through. And then at the same time, there are people who you need to protect. So, I mean, people are doing the funeral walk, right? So you need to make sure that the buses are going past, but not going too near. And then the family members need to walk inside, towards the edge. So I think there's a lot of things involved. So one of the things that I always tell myself and my team that we are the protector. So whatever happened, we must be there to protect. So, just by mushering, making sure everybody is safe, I think is very important.
And also, I think I read online that you've been to a number of countries and seen funeral, or different cultures have different way of conducting the funerals. So maybe you can share what are some of the different, Singapore always see the standard few, like the Chinese style, but maybe what are some of the interesting ones you've seen all over the world?
My friend just sent me one. I mean, some of you will know because this video went viral during COVID. Was
South
where,
Africa?
No. It was Africans, but not South Africa.
Okay.
Apparently, when I asked them, they were dancing with the casket, right? And this was a friend who's a salsa dancer. He sent me this and said, and I was asking him, are you expecting this for your own funeral? Because it was to a song of bachata. So the people were dancing. I mean, you need the coordination of these dancers. It's not easy. I don't know whether you saw the video where they actually get down on the ground and they were like bobbing with their body.
I saw that. Okay, I don't know if the body's in the...
It's inside.
I can't imagine how heavy that would
be. It is. So I think that's the part where it always amazed me to see different countries, different practice. Another one that I really wanted to go and watch is Puerto Rico. They have something called extreme embalming. So extreme embalming is where they embalm the body such that you won't even notice that the person has passed. So the first one that went viral was a motorcycle, a guy on a motorcycle, and he has his sunglasses on, right? And he was on a bike. And actually the person is already dead, right? So, but he was on his bike, and that's extreme embalming. So they fix him into the position that they wanted.
Wow.
And then I think a few years ago, they did something quite tremendous, sort of breakthrough where they even embalmed the guy to have the eyes open, right? And then he was just sitting there with his cigarettes, sitting there in the house. So I remember meeting a salsa dancer at our salsa club, and then he's like, I'm from Puerto Rico. I was like, there's something I wanted to go Puerto Rico for. And then at a moment it didn't click, right? And then after a few dances, I was like, oh my God, I know what I wanted to go. In Puerto Rico, you have this service where it's extreme embalming. And then he looked at me. He's like, that's the weirdest conversation I ever had with somebody who would talk about Puerto Rico. I said, yeah, sorry. But that was the first thing I remember about Puerto Rico. Not the food, not the salsa scene, was about this. And then when he went back to Puerto Rico, and then he's like, hey, I know the company who does that for you. So next time you come, I'll bring you there. So Puerto Rico is something that I've always wanted to do. But different countries, like you will see that regional is quite similar. Like when I say similar, it's like 3 days, 5 days wake. They always have the body at rest where family members will fly in, and then they will spend time with the departed before they have the cremation or the burial. But if you go a bit Western, like, America, Europe, they don't have something like that, a wake. Their wake is a different definition. So when the loved one passes away, that's why there's this saying, I always tell people, don't write your funeral wishes in your will, because some of the lawyers will advise their clients, yes, you can write a will and put your funeral wishes in there. I always tell them, please don't do that, because when you do that, that works for Western countries. The reason is because they don't have something called a wake. They don't have like a 3 days, 5 days wake like us. They usually, what they will do is they will get all the family members to fly in. So the departed is actually at the funeral home. Family members fly in, then they open up the will and talk about what's the instructions. Then they will meet the funeral director and say, okay, this is mom's instructions, so please arrange that. Then they will fix a day, let's say example on a Saturday. Usually Saturday, Sunday is more popular. So they will fix a day where they have a 1 hour or 2 hours service. And then after the service, the cremation or the burial. And sometimes they don't even go to the cremation. The funeral directors are the one who do it. Because I went to I went to New Zealand. I worked with them for a few days, pretty much 1 week there actually, to go to the embalming room to understand how their culture works. So that's where I learned that, so they only have 1 hour or 2 hours of service. And a lot of times family members don't follow for the cremation. It's the funeral directors who will bring the departed. So they are also not comfortable to view the person. So like Singapore, we have open casket. For them, it's very common to have closed casket. And then only family members will go to what we call a visitation room, where, let's say example, mom died on Monday, funeral service is on Sunday. So between Monday to Sunday, they can visit their loved ones. So they will tell the funeral director, oh, I want to come and visit my mom. And then they will say, okay, we will put your mom in this visitation room, maybe room A. So your booking time is 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. So then you will come, spend time. So the visitation room is where their loved one will not be in the casket, will be like a dressing table. Then they will spend time before, let's say example, up to 8 p.m. Then the funeral directors would take back the body, put them into the freezer, wait until the funeral day. On Sunday. So there's very different practice. So that's why one of the things that I often do with our overseas friend is asking them what do they do in their country. Because I remember this South African family, they lost their boy. It's a twin boy. One boy has special needs. So the special needs boy passed away. And the mom, she's South African. And I remember she told me, and met her in NUH, Coffee Bean. So she sat down, she was like, I want to do the funeral, but I just don't understand why the mortuary keep asking me to transfer my son out. Right. And then I explained to her, like, oh, because in Singapore, we actually have the funeral wake pretty much immediately. So they probably think that you need to do that. So then she asked me this question, how do you do it here in Singapore then? I said, no, how do you do it in South Africa? Because I'm aware how it's done. So I share with her how it usually is done in South Africa. And then about the 1 day wake, that's usually the preference. They don't like it when it's like whole group. But then when we were in South Africa for GLC last year, I realized a lot more about South African funeral as well, depending on which tribe you are in and all that. So for this family, they said, yeah, I prefer not to rush into the funeral wake. And we chose the day, and I always remember that day was Teacher's Day. So Teacher's Day, we had all the children who came to his funeral. We didn't have him viewing because he didn't look good. So we had a lot of his photograph. And the children were all there to say goodbye to him. But instead of making it like a sad, somber one, the teachers were very good to lead the children and say, if you're happy and you clap your hand, so they were doing that. And even though it was a hard funeral, but one of the things that I realized was the teachers did so well to guide, and the pastor also to, do some service. So I think when you are able to understand different cultures, then when you plan the funeral, you help them, alleviate this stress. I read this book called Loss Adjustment by Linda Collins, and she's a New Zealander, and she lives in Singapore, and her daughter committed suicide. So her daughter was a teenager, 17 years old. She committed suicide, and she actually narrated, it was very explicit about her experience here in Singapore. And the funeral company, I will not say it, they didn't really propose to her what is done in New Zealand. So straight away, she let the friends or the colleagues to be in charge of the funeral. So of course, the colleagues didn't know better, right? So they just like, okay, let's follow the Singapore style. And she talked about how distraught she was to have a 3 days wake. She didn't understand. And all these people who came and go, she was just lost, right? She was not in the state of mind. And it was just very, very sad for her to have that experience, because if I were the funeral director, I would have given her more time. That we don't start the funeral immediately. We start a 1 hour service. But that day where she passed until her cremation, I would just make it just for family, not for anyone else, right? Because she needed that. And then one of the practice that she said she was very distraught and shocked was that, in Singapore, when a body is cremated, usually when you collect the cremated remains, it's not what you see on TV. It's not in ashes, right? You see in TV, they scatter the ashes. It's actually all bone fragments. So she talked about her experience, Linda Collins, she talked about her experience when she received the box of her daughter's ashes, thinking that it would be ashes, but it was bone fragment. And she was just in shock with her husband. And then she talks about, because they were so distraught, there was an option for them to take whether they wanted to be pulverized to ashes, to powder form. They didn't check that box, of course, because they didn't know what it was, right? So, but being a funeral director, when you are able to know what different culture does, you should just pulverize, instead of letting them be an option or letting them know in Singapore, this is usually given, but in New Zealand, you actually pulverize. Shall I make sure that you have the cremated remains pulverized? Yes, please check for them. So I think there's a lot of guidance you need in funeral directing, and that exposure to know different practices in the world helped me to be a better funeral director and then to guide families, especially we have so many foreigners here, right? So I think once you understand the culture, why you need to do that, how to do it to their way, rather than, oh no, you come to Singapore, you must do what the Rome does. But this person is one in a lifetime, once in a lifetime experience. Why don't you give him a proper farewell? So that's what I strongly believe in. To education or knowledge will help you be a better funeral director.
So I think what intrigued me was earlier you talked about we saw the YouTube video of the dance. Right? Any chance that Singapore might have its own version? I think people have to train people to...
Yeah, I have to train muscle men to do that. I'm not sure, man, because I feel that a lot of family members, when I show them that video, they always worry one thing. It's like, what if it drops? I mean, if you see, there are some videos online where they drop the casket, right?
I haven't come across that.
Yeah, wrong movement. They move this way, that, and then the family members are all distraught, like, oh my
Even
God.
more distraught now.
Yeah. So I think in Singapore, we won't have that. But in in Taiwan, they have people who dance, right, around the casket.
Okay, fair
So,
enough.
yeah. So maybe dancing around the casket, but dancing with the casket, I think maybe Singaporeans won't accept.
Okay. I got one question I've been meaning to ask you, okay?
Sure.
Yeah, this one I read online. You're a certified funeral celebrant, right? So what's the difference between someone who is a certified funeral celebrant and someone who is not?
So celebrant was so maybe I'll talk about my experience when I was in New Zealand. So I was in New Zealand for 10 days where I was working for a funeral home. And this was in 2009, where I just wanted to expose myself, like, hey, how do people do funeral in different countries? So I went to New Zealand and then worked for a funeral home. I was in the embalming room, and I remember taking care of this old lady who has who liked pink. Like, she has particular like pink scarf, her lipstick. And then the funeral director came to me and he said to me, Angjolie, do you want to be in the service for this lady? I said, sure. I said, okay, so come tomorrow. You will go to the chapel instead of the embalming room. She will be having the service at the chapel. Then I asked her, I asked him, so is it a religious funeral? He's like, no, it's a secular. So I said, oh, secular. So who is officiating? And I said, oh, come, it's a celebrant who is officiating. So back then I was like, what's a celebrant? So I went and I was in charge of giving up this A4 fold into A5. And on this document, it was pictures of this lady, pictures of the family, and there was some write-up about the order of the service, and then a note of thanks from the family members. So I was giving out to all the funeral attendees, right? So as they are marching in, I was like, oh, yeah, please help yourself with one copy and then, get seated. So as I was ushering people in, and then once everyone is in, and they are really on time, when you're supposed to start at 12, people will come at 12. Like before 12, they make sure they're there at 12. Not like Singaporean rubber timing.
Forum rule applies.
Yeah, exactly. So they must be there because the service will start at 12. Okay. So they are used to it. And what I hear from them is they can actually take time off from work to come and attend a funeral. So after that, what I saw was a funeral director who asked me to be there together with this lady. They both went over to the podium to where the casket is, and then they both bow to the casket, and the funeral director walked back out, and the lady on the right went to the podium. She's the funeral celebrant. And I was like, wow, I was fascinated. I was standing at the back, I was watching and listening to what she said. So that was when I felt the magic of celebrant. I knew Auntie loved, the pink scarf, but I didn't know what she's like as a mother, what she's like as a sister, what she's like in the community, and what she's like as a grandmother. All I know is she likes pink. So during the service, the funeral celebrant actually talked about her whole life story. Yeah, when she met her husband, how many kids she has, what is the fondest memory of the children, of their mom, and then the grandchildren. Then they got the son to come out to speak. Then they got the grandson to come up to speak. I thought the grandson was the funniest because the grandson, the funeral director had to put up a chair so that he can stand nearer to the mic. And then all he said was, I love my Nana because Nana buys me McDonald's when mom and dad say no. Everybody started laughing. And that moment, I was like, wow, that's so beautiful. Like, why do we always focus on the sad memories? Why don't we focus on what he or she has done? So after seeing that funeral celebrant, I started to Google for funeral celebrant certification. And I wrote to 3 schools in Australia. The first 2 rejected me because I'm not Australian. And it was only this school, Australian training company, who accepted me, even though I was a foreigner. And I flew to, this was in Sydney. I went to Sydney for the course. It was a 1-week course where I did, every day was like learning about how to curate. It's sort of like your master of ceremony, right? So you coordinate the entire service, you interview the family members, get the important story, and then who do you weave in to talk about the eulogy? What music do you play? So all these are things that I experienced when I was there in New Zealand, and I brought back to Singapore. Because I remember my coach, my instructor was saying to me, "Oh, Angjolie, in New Zealand, you can only do either religious or secular." So I beg to differ. I
So
said,
what is secular?
secular is free thinker.
Free thinker.
Yeah. So no religion. So because in Australia, if you have a religious funeral, it means that the priest or the pastor or Buddhist monk will be the one who officiate the service. But if you choose a secular, if you're a free thinker, then there's no one to officiate, right? So then you have a celebrant. Then the celebrant will talk about the person's life story. So then I was asking him, why can't it be, religious and celebrant? He's like, no. You choose either one. It's like, why? Why do you need to choose either one? So I realized the people in my class, none of them were funeral directors. I was the only funeral director. And they were very curious about Singapore practice. I had a very good, his name is Keith Lemon. I still remember him. He was a very good instructor for the celebrant course. So he was sharing with me, that's not how it works in Australia. Same in New Zealand, it's either or. So I came back to Singapore. I was like, no, I want to weave this concept of celebrant into all funeral, or at least to the religious funeral, right? Because for free thinker, it's very easy to convince family rather than just, okay, everybody come, bow to the casket and that's it. You talk about the person's life story. So free thinker usually are more receptive to the concept of celebrant. But why does it have to be for only people who are free thinker? So then I start to manage, in terms of the religious side, how do we then weave in this part? So we are given 30 minutes at Mandai Crematorium. So I will piece out, okay, how much time does the monk, chanting usually take? And then from there, how much time do I have to share? How much time does the eulogies, maybe 2 eulogies to share, and then the closing song. So I started to plan it this way that, actually we do have time, because usually a 30-minute slot, family and the monk usually take out maybe 10 minutes only. So there's like a waste of 20 minutes. So I was like, hey, why don't we use this 20 minutes and then make it more meaningful for the family, where we talk about the person's life story. So that's how I started. So in Singapore, I think up to date, I'm still the only certified funeral celebrant. So funeral director is the one who directs the funeral. So they arrange everything. But the celebrant is where we talk about the person's life story. And then we deliver the story.
So it's like doing a podcast. You got to interview the different members of the family to craft a message.
So I have to sit down, interview different people, like example, family members or friends or community. So let's say example, I would meet usually the wife or the spouse, husband or wife, and then the children, and then the grandchildren. Actually, you will find a lot of amazing story on that. The parent, they will say like, father is very strict. And then when it comes to the grandchildren, my dad is so weak with my children. And then they start to narrate the story. And then, then you start to see different facets, because as a parent, you're very strict. As a grandparent, your role is to dote on the children, right?
Yes.
So you hear different stories. And then usually we will ask for one good friend or a colleague, an ex-colleague. And then you start to weave the story together. So usually I will start off with, what's he like? Maybe if his siblings are around, I will ask for a sibling. What was your father like? Or your brother like as a child? Or is he like as a brother, right? Then they will share. Or brother is always the one who take care of all of us. My brother is usually the one who take charge, right? Because he's the eldest. So you start to hear stories, or even sometimes stories where, my elder brother will get a whip by my dad. So you hear these stories, and then from there, what's he like as a kid? What's he like studying? Is he a very good student? Does he play sports? Then slowly, how did they meet? Right, the spouse. And then after that, you ask about the children. What's he like as a father? Then what's he like as a grandchildren? So I will ask the grandchildren, Like, tell me something about your grandpa. I remember there was one, the kid was very young. And then I said, do you want to say something? He said, no. I said, oh, how about, do you want to write something? I said, okay. So he wrote. Then later on, I saw what he wrote. He said, thank you for teaching me how to play mahjong. It was so funny. And then it was like handwritten by a kid, right? Then everybody laughed at that. So I think these are moments that we can't take away, right? And I think in the funeral, rather than we keep focusing on the last chapter, but if we are able to focus on the person's achievement, the lives that have touched, nobody will remember what PSLE score you score, really. So at the day where you pass, it's really about the memories that you have created with them, the lives that have touched, right? They have touched. So even for grandkids, right, they remember. I remember this uncle story so well. He's a some people will call him a 败家子 lah, because he was born with a silver spoon. So 他要风得风, whatever he wants, he gets it. So every time he put his hand out, he will get money from the mom. So, but that also caused him not to be able to fend for himself when the father passed. Left him the business. He didn't run the business. He doesn't know how to run the business. And it was a very popular restaurant in Chinatown. And then within months, the restaurant was gone. So he didn't know what to do. He has 3 daughters. So if you ask the daughters memories about him, the daughters actually don't have much, because they're like, oh, that is always not available, because he was so dejected. He has no money now. So he doesn't know how to, get back to life. And then his wife was the one who went out to get a job so that she can feed the family. And then I remember this story because you could see how the man sort of life, it's like a roller coaster, living the high life, suddenly went down rock bottom, has 3 kids. Then he had to learn how to take the taxi driving license. But at a point in time, you can only do it if you understand English. So his daughter was the one who helped him, the second daughter. So the story was narrated to me. It's like, wow, so you actually helped your dad to get a taxi license. Because when I know him, I didn't know about all this life, right? I only know, uncle was a taxi uncle. So then he got his taxi driving license, went to driving. And when you talk to the grandchildren, 3 grandchildren, granddaughters also, I met the eldest one and I asked, what do you remember about your Waikong? And they were just in awe with him. It's like, wow, Waikong always bring us to this place. Waikong fetch us after school. Waikong drop us. Waikong was everything. But when you ask the daughters, he wasn't everything, right? So then you start to see the role we play with different people at different part of our life. So I think that's the beauty of being a funeral celebrant. You get a lot of stories, you get inspired by the stories, you learn a lot, and then hopefully these stories can inspire people, and then they can also impact other generations.
And I think it's also like very important that his daughter get to realize it's not that useless after all. It's such a huge impact on their grandchildren, on his grandchildren.
It is.
Then look and make the father look better in their own eyes, right? So meaningful.
Absolutely. So
wow.
I think there's a lot of, I think in my line of work, I really hope that people always ask me, what are the things that I see or I hope to do? I said it's actually regrets. I see a lot of regrets. And if my work or like doing podcasts like this can help people to not have regrets by saying what they want to say, by really be true to themselves. Don't just say, but don't do, or don't want to say it, but then in the heart, you just harbor that negative thought or that negative feeling, and then after that regret not saying it because the person has passed. So I think this is something I hope to share, that we know death will come one day, but we just don't know when. So don't take everything to chances that, I have tomorrow. Sometimes tomorrow never come. So I think if today people can do and take action, then just do it rather than you wait, right?
Yeah. So I'm curious, you mentioned this, I think, an optional thing, right? So how common is it for people to actually pick this option, the Life Celebrant, the option where you actually talk about this? I think because we
are the only company who does that. So there are mostly a lot, the free thinkers, they will take up this. Religious, usually they will prefer the priest or the pastor to do it. But we help families to ask if any of the family members want to share their eulogy, and then we will invite them. So all funerals, we will ask them.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can't say for other casket companies. I don't know how they manage it.
So any trends that you're seeing in your space right now?
Any trends? People start to hire female after I started hiring female. I have about 80% ladies in my team. Yeah.
Is it
so
intentional or just so happened?
No, it just happened. I used to start with only me being the only female. I think when I started TLC, it was so hard to get female. So there were like 4 guys with me, 5 of us. Then I started to have 1 female, then another female, and then sometimes they come and go, right? So the ratio was always like maybe 50-60. And then I think because we are very strong in a female team, so people are attracted also. And then they feel like, oh, it's actually a safe space for female. So then they start to inquire like, oh, can I join? So slowly we get more female inquiry. And then I start to observe other casket company also starting to hire female. Because I think back then, to them is they think about, you don't have strength as a female. Are you sure you can do this? So I remember when I first started hiring female, and there was some naysayer like, you hire so many ladies, can't even carry the casket. I said, okay, maybe 2 men can carry a departed. Then I'll put 3 girls. I put 4 girls. But it doesn't matter as long as it's female. And I said, because grandma has never been touched by another man, she doesn't want to be touched by any man. So I have female team. It's okay. I have number of girls, 4 girls, you can go. Right. So with that, I find that in the industry, there will be always people who look down on you or like think that you're crazy. I have so many times people think I'm crazy. Number 1, the Life Celebrant, even that company name 14 years ago when I started. Who wants to celebrate life? You talk about celebrating, people will think I'm crazy. So, but I already started with this brand name, TLC. So that was the first thing I started. Then I started hiring ladies, and the ladies have to wear dresses for funeral day. So some ladies are like, oh, but boss, I don't want to wear dress. I said, no, you must wear dress. That's the uniform. So then they learn to wear dress and maneuver everything in the dress. And of course, there's a jacket, right? So we recently redid our uniform. And then I asked the ladies, what are your needs? They said, oh, we need big pockets. I said, sure. So we have this jacket that's like a cape. It looks like a cape, right? But it's because it's very long. It looks like a dress jacket, like a trench coat. And actually at the side, it's very big pockets. So they can put, but not looking too bulky. Yeah. Then... so then I start to realize other casket companies start to hire, because I see ladies are also, at the funeral, the crematorium. So I think the trend is coming, and then younger people want to join this industry because I hope it's because of a good reason. But sometimes I hear people saying that, oh, it's so cool to be in the funeral industry, so I want to join. I was like, I think you can try my competitor lah. Don't come to my company, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work, sacrifices. Maybe if you are like dating, right? Maybe you're not used to this kind of lifestyle, then your partner may not understand.
Yes.
Right? You're having dinner halfway, and then like, I have to go. So there's also things that we kept to our promise, meaning to say, if they're on their off day, we don't ask them to come back. In the past, maybe we were very short-handed. So we have times where people are on leave, they have to cancel their leave. But I realized we need to have work-life balance, right? So whenever they are off, they can plan their day. We will not ask them to come back, so that they know, like, okay, I'm going to have a family day. You won't be disturbed. Yeah, I think that's important. Otherwise, you will get burnt out. Your partner will not understand. Your spouse will be like, why are you always on your phone? So it's not nice, right? So I think that's something that I believe in, that we should have work-life balance. Even for myself, now that I have a kid, I'm more deliberate in who I meet, purposeful in the time I spend as well.
So earlier you also talk about that. As a funeral director, you actually delegate a lot of the stuff like the tendagers, the food and stuff. So I hear you also have a number of female staff. So what does your staff do in the business?
So you still have to, the one that take care of the departed is still my team. The person who coffin the departed is still my team, right? Then they are sort of in charge of the whole. So instead of just a funeral director, there's also the operation team. So they will do the setup. They will do the liaison with the suppliers. The suppliers is only the hardware, right? They provide the hardware. The software is still our team.
Okay.
to run the day-to-day, to visit the family, to share with the family what's the procedure going to be like. The suppliers are not the one doing it.
So you run the human touch, I suppose.
Yeah. So there's still the hardware that we do, like the casket and coffin, taking care of the family. So that's still us, right? So if you just think about venue, right? The venue vendors, these are still outsourced. But the one who runs the show is still the team of people. So you have the wedding planner and then the wedding team, right? So that's your operation team to make sure that when does the bride and groom comes in, you still need the operation team. Yeah.
I see.
So yeah.
What are some of the challenges that you're facing in business right now?
I guess it's because this industry has no barrier of entry. Like in financial advisory, you need to go for your examination, MAS regulation, before you can become a licensed financial advisor. But in Singapore, there's no such criteria. So anyone can be a funeral director. So every day you start to see new companies coming up. But maybe they are not educated in this space. When I say educated in this space, they think that, funeral can be done by anyone, right? But you don't understand the soft touch to it, the grief, the conflict management, the amount of hard work, the hard work. And you just think that, it's just, a friend of mine used this word, it's like packaging and delivery, right? You just package the departed and then you just deliver to the crematorium. It's not that, right? It's a lot more than that. So that's the biggest challenge, that every day you have people who are coming into the industry for that number of deaths in a year. And then also the challenge is that the market, the public may not be making the best decision because they are they never expect. The irony is we all will die, but nobody really talks about it. Nobody have this open conversation to say, hey, when I die, I want this company. Maybe now people are more aware, but you don't put it in black and white and say, okay, when I die, call this person, do this, I want this funeral. Most people will not want to talk about it. But we did see a change over COVID. More people are getting prepared. More people are doing pre-planning with us also, so that they are aware or they want to be in control of their passing, right? They want to be in control of when they pass, how their funeral will be done, their farewell will be done. So that part was one of the biggest challenge, that more competitors are coming in, but we still don't have good regulation to regulate this industry. Slowly I guess someday we are still taking the first step, right? We started the first introduction to funeral directing course to see whether there was a take-up, and it was very well received. So maybe that's the next step to help to educate more people into this industry. I think a second challenge, I guess, is getting people to talk about this topic, more, or having to come to face this. Because if you're able to face this topic, then perhaps you will live life differently, right? You will not hesitate to hold on to that word you wanted to say to someone, or hold on to that apology that you've been wanting to say, but ego is holding you back. I think by talking very openly, what if tomorrow you have no tomorrow? Then maybe this will expedite you to do a lot of things you want to achieve in this life. So that's how I live my life. So sometimes people ask me, well, how do you do it? I say, because I don't want to have regrets. I really don't want to have regrets. And I mean it, right? So I would prepare a lot of things ahead of time. I even told my partner, okay, my insurance policies are here. You don't have to worry about anything. Call this person. I have my financial advisor contact on the fridge. Call him. He knows what to do. So these are the things I constantly think about. And even things like I created an email for my daughter. And then every time I have, say, moments, right, I will write her an email.
That's so meaningful. Okay.
Yeah, I'll write her an email, and then I will CC Daddy in, and Daddy has the password, right? So I said to release to her when I pass, or maybe when she's 21, I'm still around, to pass it to her. Like, what are the moments that you took my breath away? So the recent post email I sent to her was, I was in KL for a speaking engagement. And then, so my daughter has an iPhone. She doesn't use the iPhone for movies. She used the iPhone to take pictures and call me. So we put in all our FaceTime contact. So at 6 to 7 is always the time I will call her. If I don't call her, she will call me. So she will FaceTime me. So now she has a phone, she will FaceTime us. Sometimes she will FaceTime us at the wrong time, but we were, as much as I can, I will always answer. So I answered and she saw that I was getting ready. I was going out for dinner. So I was putting on makeup. So she's like, oh, mommy. So she went to take her makeup kit. Okay, I didn't give her the makeup kit. It was given by a friend and we have no choice to accept that gift. I was like, oh my gosh, she's only 4, Then because she sees me making up every day, right? So she's like, mommy, then she was showing me her box. She's like, which one for the cheek? Which one? I said, oh, no, 上面那个, the top one, the 四角形的, the 长方形的, the triangle, the rectangle. She's like, oh, this one? So she pointed, this one? So she started to whack her face with that brush. And funny, she knows which brush to use, Because there were 4, right? She knows that's the big brush. So she started to paint her face. Then she's like, mommy, which one? Lipstick. So she took, and I screenshot, right, those shots. Then put on her lipstick. And she knew which applicator, which was surprising. Then she asked me, which one for 下面? I said, where's 下面? Then I couldn't understand what she was saying. She sort of gave up. She was like, okay. And what she wanted was her cheek. So she was her chin. So she started to paint her chin. So she came out after that when I saw her. She was all red here. So I sent her the photo of her and she was super proud. She's like, okay, like mama can, She was super proud. She stand there with a big smile, her face. So I just dropped her the message that, I think the message I gave her was that this is the authentic you, lah. Be a clown and always be that. Don't let anybody tell you that, to change. Just be that. My daughter is like this. She liked to be a clown. Like my partner is the same pattern. Like she likes to make people laugh. And I said, don't ever lose that. Like that's you, right? So so things like this, I will suddenly have moments where I will send her an email.
Very meaningful. I did something similar, but mine is more of because I'm so used to video, so mine is called, I have a YouTube channel called Lessons to My Children. So I believe these are certain principles, they're lessons that I believe my kids want to have, right?
Nice.
So sometimes when I get you inspired, I'll just shoot a 15-minute video talking about certain things that happened to me, the lessons that I learned. Hopefully that maybe one day I'm gone, these lessons can still see Papa on video somewhere online. So that reminded me of that when you shared your letters, your email.
Yeah, I think that never underestimate how these messages can be, right? So it's good that you have a channel. I'm sort of very private with a lot, even I try not to show my daughter on my social media. Because my partner is also someone who is very private. So he's like, don't show the face. Yeah, so most of the time we show the back. And I think that video, whatever you're doing, is what I call emotional wheel. So in my sharing, I always say there are three wheels that you have to prepare. First is your living wheel. So living wheel stands for your lasting power of attorney. If I dementia, who's going to take care of me? What are the things I need? So that's your lasting power of attorney. Then you have your AMD, Advanced Medical Directive, Advanced Care Planning. So that's living wheel. Why is it called living will? It's because you need it, but you're no longer able to communicate and you are still alive, right? So that's living will. The second one is your financial will. So financial will is about your dollars and cents, who gets what, at what age and all that. Then the last one is emotional will, which a lot of people don't have it, which is what you have created, right? So emotional. So how do we have emotional will? It could be a letter, it could be a video, voice recording. So we do that a lot for our clients now, that we want to capture that moment where we, moment or video that, what are the message you want to say? Because sometimes people are shy, right? Singaporeans, we have this habit of not, or maybe not Singaporean, Asians. We don't say, oh, I love you, I'm sorry, I thank you. So by using video to communicate maybe, or a letter, I think this can help future generations to make sense of, what actually happened. Does Papa really like me? Does Papa love me? I never know. Papa never say. But imagine there's a letter that says, I love you forever. Wow, your whole life will change, right? So if we can inspire one person, that's why I always say, I just need to inspire one person to take action. And this can impact many generations. Because, I received Dad's love. Now I'm going to give this love to my future generation. So you pass on, right? But imagine if whatever you have received is negative and negative. There are two ways. Some people just keep going down. Some people will do the reverse and say, I will never do that. So there's two ways of reaction, right? So that's why a lot of traumas, like people talk about childhood trauma, either you face it or you deal with it, or you just let it not be aware and you keep going down because you never resolve this childhood traumas. So I think the video is a very good idea.
Yeah,
Just
but
like
also
you
like what you
mentioned.
share about the specific moment with your kid. I think that hits a lot more personal. Mine is like more of lessons, fair enough.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I like the one you shared that the moments you have with your child. So when they look back, they think, oh yeah, I really
You
did
probably
that,
don't
mom.
remember, but yeah, like the other day, it's very surprising. My daughter, so in France, we have something called the galette de Loire, which is a cake that you have for New Year. So usually is, I think if I'm not wrong, it's 13th of January, you will have that cake. And I remember we always buy from Tiong Bahru Bakery because they have it. And people even didn't know that there's a trinket. So it's a little ceramic trinket that's in this cake. So they will cut the cake. The youngest person have to go under the table and choose which slice they want. Then once they choose, then the rest will take the other share of the cake. And then as you eat, you need to be careful because maybe there's a trinket inside. So if you get the trinket, you are the king of the table. And the other day we had the same cake but smaller one. So there was no trinket inside. And my daughter was 2 when we had the first cake with her. And she remembered. She's like, Mommy, I was the king that time. I was like, my God, how do you remember? Because 2 years old, right? Because we make her go down, choose, and she got it. It was her who got it because we didn't want her to. I was scared that she eat the trinket, so I have to open up. But oh my God, you got it. So then she remembered that moment. So you'll be surprised by the memories sometimes she has. So I'm very careful what I say to her. Because then she will, Mommy, you say you buy for me.
Yeah, so nowadays they can use it back against us. Nowadays, like, wow.
I know.
Okay. So, okay, let's move on to a lighter note before we sum up today's session, right? So, so the book, I'll ask you about the book. How did the book, right, Dying to Meet You, come about? Yeah, you wrote a book.
It came about in many ways because I was doing a lot of seminars, especially for hospitals, hospice. They wanted to know what's the process after the person has passed away. So during my sharing, I will talk about a lot of cases that I've done. What are the things that you guys, as nurses and doctors can do, and then why we need you to do it this way, etc. And then as I was sharing the stories, people will come up to me and say, oh, do you have a book? Is there somewhere we can read? Because I don't have a blog, right? I was like, no, there's nowhere. It's only at seminars. And then I start to hear people say, oh, you should write a book. You should write a book. Then I met up with Po Hua, which was he's the Lien Foundation chairman. So I a CEO. So Po Hua was like, hey, you need a book. Let me recommend you to the publisher. So Edmund. So I said, oh, okay. So he hooked us up. I went to Epigram office, Edmund, meet Edmund. And the minute I share my story, Edmund was like, yep, let's do it. So we started the journey. I have a ghostwriter because I won't be able to do the writing, right? Consider I have F9 for GP. So they introduced 2 ghostwriters and I connected very well with Charmaine. She's on my book also, Charmaine Wong. So I told Charmaine, how should we kickstart this? So for 1.5 years, every Tuesday she will come to my house and we will meet for probably about 1.5 to 2 hours where I would tell her, I would just give her downloads, give her a lot of the stories that I remember, right? Or interesting cases that I say, hey, last week I have this case, I need to tell you about it. So then I will quickly record it while it's fresh on my head, let her have it. So she did a brilliant work to piece and weave to different chapters. Right, because as I'm sharing it, maybe she said, oh, this fits into this chapter. Oh, this fits into this chapter. So she did a brilliant work to put it into different chapters that is relevant. Then she will ask me what impacted you. So I share about my overseas experience. So she then weave out the chapters. So that's how the book came about. So the book started, maybe the discussion was in because my first book was launched in 2017. My first encounter with Epigram is probably 2014, 2015. Took us about 2 years before we launched the book. And coincidentally, we launched the book when I first started Showers of Love.
Wow. So you mentioned that she comes to the office every Tuesday, then you
to my house.
Okay. Then you record it on the recorder, then you pass her the recorder? Or
no. She will record, she sit down with me, ask me questions. But sometimes there's moments where I remember something. then I quickly record and send to her. It may not be on the Tuesday that she's here, right?
Okay, that's
So,
extra lah.
Yeah, the extra. Because sometimes ideas just, hey, I suddenly remember this case, right? And then what the family said to me, let me send it to you now.
Yeah.
Then if you were to wait until the following Tuesday, I may have not remember everything. So I usually just do that. Oh, I need to send you this. So I'll just send to her. She's a brilliant. She's really good in, piecing my thoughts together. She created a language that's more me. So a lot of times when people read my book, they say, oh, your book is a very easy read. It's like a book, like a page turner. It wasn't bombastic words. It's just what, it's very me. So she wrote it in my language as well.
So every week for 1.5 years, you'll meet up. Then she have this like library of content and she'll like structure it into a book. Wow, that's amazing. The ghostwriter. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I highly recommend her to a lot of people. But again, I guess it's also finding the right copywriter, the ghostwriter for you, because you need someone to be able to feel it, especially for my book. Someone, not that I was trying to support a female, because they give me two. One was a male and a female. I connected more with her. And I think it's also because from a female perspective, she can also feel it differently. And she used to be a journalist with SPH. So there were moments where she wanted to understand more about embalming, example. So in my book, there was a chapter about embalming. And I was trying to explain to her. She's like, hey, don't explain. I just come and watch. I want to.
Wow, that kind of
that's
level.
how brave she is, right? She's like, I just want to come and watch and I see how you do it. Okay, then I can write better. I said, sure. So she's always up for this, right? Oh, I want to come and see it. Like if there's any funeral, I say, hey, can come. I just come and see how you do it. So I think that was something that was very meaningful in my journey with her. So we became very close also. Yeah. So unfortunately, her husband, she's also in my podcast. Her husband passed away. And she actually wrote an article in SPH as well, upon her reflection of her husband's sudden passing as well. Yeah. So yes, that's how the book came about.
Nice. And I also noticed that you've been featured in several media outlets like Mothership, or was it South China Morning Post? So how did those come about? Those news.
No, I
media
think
feature?
a lot of news we didn't go out to get it lah. But now it's very passé, right? For a female being in a funeral, I think I want to be known for other things lah. Things that I do really.
For example?
Those were, I think if I could have more articles about how I have inspired lives and how I have made people do something differently. I think those are very nice articles. These were quite old articles where female being in the funeral industry was still a new concept, right? Or very fresh. But now there are many females in the industry. So every time you see new articles about, this female. But I would like to get more interviews about what I'm doing to shape, like example, the education. Oh, what made you want to start talking about this, like ITE course, what made you want to do this course, right? So then there's a lot more substance on how I want to bring up the professionalism of this industry. So so I think these are articles that people caught the eyes and say, hey, let's talk about what you've done. Because if you see nowadays, it's quite common to see female in the industry. So I feel that maybe hopefully in few months or few years, I will be featured for more of the things that I've done, like Showers of Love, or I'm trying to come up with the third book that I will help to. There are two books that I'm looking at. One is for children to understand about death, and then another book that I would like to do is a guide, a book, like a workbook, so that people can put down the instructions also.
Okay.
So I mean, these are things that I constantly think of lah. So I think my brain never sleeps. So I get idea from here. I was like, maybe I can do that. So my team has a hard time trying to like, boss, where are you running to? But that's usually also very blessed lah when they write to me and, oh, I saw you in this article. Can we interview you about this? We have one that's going to happen, I think in March and April. That one I'm quite excited with the documentary.
What's the documentary? So what's it going to be about, the documentary?
It's a feature of 4 different documentary, but I think when it comes out, then maybe, because I think they still want to keep things under wraps. So,
Okay, no problem with that. Okay, so since today's conversation, right, I guess a lot of it's about death, right? So I guess I'm going to ask you the question, right? I think I read online you mentioned something like how you want your funeral to be like. I think it was very descriptive about that. I think it'd be great if you can share it now with the listeners so they have an idea how.
Talk about it all the
Yeah.
time. It's gonna be a white casket. I like red. I actually love red. But unfortunately, I can't wear that much red. In my line of work. So red flowers definitely. I want to have a dance floor where I can play because I'm a salsa dancer, right? So hopefully the band who I often support, Havana Social Club, they will come and play lah. So all my friends who are salsa dancers, they'll come. In fact, I'm still toiling with the fact whether I want to have a 3 days wake or a memorial, but I leave it to my partner lah, because I say that I think for him, he will want things a bit more private. So maybe have a more private funeral, then a memorial. And then a memorial can be anywhere. It can be at the dance club, the salsa dance club that I go. And for people to just come and celebrate my life. Yeah. Talk about the stories. So I collect a lot of fans, hand fans. So people, every time they travel, they will buy me fans. I have like maybe 50 or near to 80 hand fans.
Fans like the one that you let it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hand fans.
What's the significance of it?
No, I just started with, because salsa dancing, usually you get it's very hot, right? You sweat, you perspire. So I remember those days, so unglam, you'll use like the laminated menu and fan yourself. You'll use don't know what, paper and fan yourself. So one day I started like, why don't I just buy a nice hand fan? I started using it. Then more and more people start to copy the idea. It's like, hey, yeah, good idea. Then I make it into, I will go to different countries and find, it's not particularly like expensive hand fans, but just fans, And people started to give me fans because I always have fans. So not the battery operated one, but really hand fans. Then they will sometimes buy from museum or some fans are really expensive. So I keep it. And then I hope that I can display it. And then another thing that I would really want was that to have empty hand fans that they can write messages about me, right? Leave a message or how Angjolie had touched her life or whatever. And then give it to my daughter when she's old enough. Yeah. Because I always think about my funeral happening maybe touch wood tomorrow. Because you never know when you'll go. But so people were like, why are you doing this? It's like, I really don't know how long I have with my daughter, right? So if for however long, of course, I will give her whatever I could. But I also want her to have memories like, how did your mom touch my life or what I've done? Was there moments where I did sometimes people will tell me, do you remember you did this? I said, no, I don't remember. but I'm glad. Like, I have one friend who texted me 1 year, apparently long time, after a specific event, pretty much like 1 year after. And then she said, hey, I owe you a dinner. I was like, you owe me a dinner? Why? And I don't remember because I didn't meet her for almost a year. She said, anyway, just come out. I owe you a dinner. So I was like, okay. So we went out for dinner. He said, do you remember a year ago, you tell me I sort of knocked some sense out from her lah, because she was dating a married man. And I was very blunt. And I said that, I was very blunt. I said, because I'm your friend, I will tell you this, that like, stop victimizing yourself. And this is the last time I will entertain your conversation about this guy. Because number one, he's not going to leave his wife. I know this guy also. He's not going to leave his wife. And I think that whatever you're doing is just going to hurt yourself. And I'm not going to give you space for you to talk about him. Because the more you talk about him, the more you feel very shook, right? Wow, I'm victimizing myself. And she was expecting me to like maybe sayang her. It's like, yeah, But I didn't give her that. And I said that the day you leave him, then you buy. Because I paid for dinner, right? I said, the day you leave him, then you buy me. So it took her 1 year. I don't even remember this conversation. I said, do you remember you said that? I said, did I? Oh, probably I did. But I remember telling you, don't tell me about him. Because I don't want any, I think I'm old enough at the point to like, don't give me this kind. I don't like gossip. So the more you tell me about him, I can't do anything for you. I can't go to the guy and say, stop cheating on your wife. Because don't know you that well. But I told her that you should stop because he's not going to leave his wife. I know this guy. He will never leave his wife. So don't do that. But that's my point now. Yeah.
So one thing to add is while you're talking about how your funeral to be like, I think you mentioned having a KTV machine. Is it? Did I don't know if I read it
I
correctly?
love KTV. I
Yeah,
love
having your friends to sing for you, your
Yeah.
favorites. Oh, that's so meaningful. Like, oh, this song really.
I already
sounds
told
really
some of
very-
my guy friends, hey, 我死的时候 remember you were the one who made me start singing 莫文蔚 Karen Mok. So he was the one who said, hey, you should sing her song because you have the 声线, you know, like your voice is like her, you can sing her songs. So then I started singing because of him. So I love karaoke. I love that. So it will be good lah. Why don't you sing be happy. Fine.
Yeah.
My funeral will be a party. It's likely going to be at my mom's, Ang Yu Sing funeral parlor. I'm very sure my mom will have it there. But I just think that it's important for them, to just really enjoy that day. And I live a good life. I have a lot of good connection, good relationship. I also feel that I grow as a person. My soul is on a journey, and so don't be sad for me. Really. I think I've pretty much done what I've done. Every single day I'm like, hey, maybe I haven't done this. I still have things that I've done not done yet lah. So I'm still trying to fix that, right? But at least I know that when I go, number one, my family is taken care. And then business wise, I know my sisters, my siblings will be able to handle, and then maybe they can consider to do a merger with the business. So every single thing I will have contingency lah. Maybe the only thing is EO lah. Maybe EO membership can pass down to next generation. I don't know. Yeah.
And what about life after death? Have you thought about that, or what's your take on that?
I always feel there's a different realm, like just that we can't see it. Yeah. I think there's always people who has passed and they are around us, just that we can't see. Or maybe they go to a paradise. Maybe I won't use the word heaven, right? Or I'm sure heaven is also another word. I always believe there's another realm, just that we can't see it.
Is there any maybe experience that comes to mind that make you feel this way, or something that happened?
Make me feel this. Thank God I can't see. I mean, there are people who ask me, do you see? I said, no, but I can sense. Sometimes I suddenly wake up to a smell, right? And this smell is quite a similar smell that I have smelled it before. So sometimes I feel like I'm not alone. Then I'll explain, or sometimes somewhere which like there's no way a fly will fly in, suddenly flew in. I was like, oh, so I don't freak out. I just say, oh, thanks for coming to see me, whoever you are. So I think that's the part where I always say, follow the light. Sometimes they are not aware where they are. So I can't see it, but I always feel like, maybe if I'm not alone, I can sense like, suddenly I feel an energy like, I'm not alone. Then I will say, oh, you need to go to the light. Then I will just say it to the air. Like, well, you have just passed away. You probably don't know where you are. So your body is going through a transition. So you need to follow the light. Yeah. So hopefully that will help them. And I always believe that there's another realm. I have a lot of dreams also about people who has passed. Yeah. My dad, my uncle. I still remember my uncle, he gave me a dream that he was very happy. He's my father's youngest brother. He's very happy. He was in a suit. And I said, wow, where are you going? And I'm very aware that I'm having a dream. And this is a dream of someone who has passed. So where are you going? He's like, oh, I'm going to go travel. I said, oh, then you welcome Papa. Are you going with Papa? I said, yeah. So I woke up. I was like, I need to buy them passport. So I text my cousin. I was like, hey, I had a dream of an uncle and he said that he's going overseas. I was like, okay. And it was near the Qingmingjie, So, okay, let's go. We went to the shop. God, we bought so many things. We bought a new house. We bought passport for everyone who has passed. Thank God the person knows my dad, knows my family. So he was like, oh, give me the name. My mom gave me all the people who has passed. My grandmother, my grandmother, my grandfather, my uncle, my aunt, my Aku. So we gave all the names, bought an aeroplane, bought a new house, to burn, not just for them. And I remember my cousin asking me, he said, hey, your tuape and your tuape doesn't get along with the rest. Then we still buy him passport. I said, buy him passport doesn't mean they will travel together. Just buy first. Then I said, yeah, true. So we bought for everybody. So I think sometimes, messages just come. And even like my dad gave me a dream one day when it was Qingmingjie. He came to my dream. I never worked with him in a day in my life. He suddenly, we were at a funeral wake. He just passed me a set of clothing. He said, "Hey, Xiao Mei, go and change him." So I said, "Oh." So I took the clothes, walked over to the casket, and then the minute I looked down, it's my dad. And then I woke up. And then next day, I was living with my grandma that time. So I asked my grandma, "Hey, Ama, what bang tio, Papa, I dreamt of that." I said, "What do you think he's trying to say?" Then I told my uncle, the one uncle who passed, he passed away years after. Then he said, "I think your father want new clothes." I said, "Oh, okay, let's go." So I brought my uncle together. I said, "Hey, what do you think Dad likes?" So we bought him and then we burned for him. Yeah. So I mean, sometimes I get messages now.
I see. Okay. So since we're coming to a close, is there anything that, you wish I had asked you during this podcast that I didn't know? Anything else that you wish to add?
No, I think you asked quite a lot about children, about legacy. You asked pretty much a lot of things, man.
Because you are interesting. So a lot of questions for you.
I mean, I appreciate that. You ask a lot of questions that I don't typically share. Even sometimes podcasts, it doesn't come out. So thanks for asking those questions.
You're most welcome. So happy to have you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Reno.
Thank you so much.
All right.